All right, I see some familiar faces. Egan, Matt, Pete. I'd say good to see you guys, but I only see your name, not your faces. Everybody, we'll just give folks another minute to trickle in here. Thanks for joining us today. Be a good one. All right, I think we're a couple minutes in. I think we can get started. I'm sure we'll have more folks kind of trickle in here, and we'll kind of start with the warm up here. Anis, do you want to start by introducing yourself, and then I'll kind of introduce myself, and we can kind of kick off in earnest.
Yeah, totally. Hey everyone, I'm Anis. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Attention.com. We've been around for almost 4 years now, and we're a Series A, late Series A startup based out of New York, 50-ish employees. And we work with companies like Scale AI, Bamboo HR, and many other ones.
I'm impressed to hear you guys are all only been around for 4 years. I feel like your market presence suggests you've been around a lot longer, which is great. Anis, thanks for joining. I'm James, co-founder of AccountAim. AccountAim is a go-to-market data platform, primarily for RevOps folks. So we help folks centralize all of their kind of disparate go-to-market data sources, provide BI, and increasingly kind of a go-to-market context layer for AI and agents. So fun topic today. I think everyone here has probably seen the AI references on LinkedIn or requests coming down from executives to use AI. I get a lot of feedback from folks in RevOps that feel they're kind of behind the curve here. Specifically, how can I use AI? How the heck do I implement it? It feels overwhelming. So today, instead of a 50-step workflow graphic promising to automate your entire outbound function, Anis and I are going to take it a little bit slower here. We'll kind of share some of our perspectives that are hopefully helpful to help you guys think about how to think about AI, prepare for it, and begin to implement it in a phased manner to do kind of real work. Before we kind of kick off with the slides, Anis, any other like perspectives or reactions about this topic, given just like, you're running an AI first companies from these use cases, there's a lot of market discussion too. So I don't know if you have any kind of thoughts related to how people are talking about AI.
Yeah, first of all, I think this is going to reassure a lot of people here. There's a massive disconnect between what people are posting on LinkedIn and the reality of the market, right? I think a lot of people, you're going to be seeing a lot of these LinkedIn posts about, oh, I automated, my entire go-to-market motion, or I replaced 100 people with AI agents. The reality is that those people who post about these things, they're not the operators. They tend to be consultants who want to get visibility, right? So you're right where you need to be. You need to, crawl before you walk, walk before you run. And I think, being an AI first startup over here, obviously there's a ton that we automate, but we still have a ton of humans that sanity check everything and still control the machines that are operating for us.
That's definitely reassuring. I already know what we're talking about today, but even just hearing it from you of all people makes me feel a bit better. So let's get into it here. I view this as kind of like the summary of what we're going to talk about today in terms of how to do AI. So what does it take to integrate AI well into your org today? Activate first-party insights. Attention does an amazing job of this. Kind of tie them to your existing data stack. Hopefully both of those are in real time, kind of combining all of these data and insights together, and make sure you can fit all of this info into the context of the customer journey. So kind of what are the key checkpoints and how do we have the context so we understand what's actually happening as it relates to like what we're trying to get done as a company in terms of progressing prospects and customers along that customer journey. So all this gets your AI acting on the right day at the right time with the right context. And so we'll get into kind of how to do this. Today, more tactically, we'll cover just a couple aha moments in terms of things that were helpful to us as we think about AI and the benefits of it and what it takes to do it well. We'll talk about why this phased AI enablement matters, and then we'll do a little bit of a deep dive into some actual use cases at a few different levels of maturity. I think the easiest aha moment comes from the attention product itself. So Anis, do you want to just talk about kind of like old world versus new world, what AI is helping folks do, and some of like the impact you've seen with customers?
Yeah, 100%. So the way we see things happening, old world versus new world, right? It's a lot of people in the old world, if you need any analysis to happen, if you need to understand things around your go-to-market motion, you spend a lot of time analyzing, conversations, emails, deal velocity metrics in your CRM. A lot of these things that you'd have a data analyst or you'd have a RevOps person just spend a lot of time just doing their actual manual work to extract intelligent reports that they can share with leadership, right? You also have at the rep level, you'd have typically AEs who spend time, copy pasting the insights that they get in their call recorders into the CRM, right? Now you're starting to see a few more tools out there that will also fill your CRM for you. But the majority, will miss a lot of the edge cases, right? Like, what are the types of fields that I need to get into my CRM? Is it just related to the call, or is it related to the deal, or is the information related to the account that needs to go into our CRM? And so like that's what I would call kind of like mastering the basics as well, making sure that the right data goes into your CRM. Similarly, when you're sending emails as well, right, from an outbound perspective, it is very important to make sure that all these emails are stored at the activity level of your CRM, and that so that's kind of like what we also call getting the basics, to make sure that your spine, which is your actual CRM, the vertebrae, is properly connected to your tools. Once you have that done properly, then from there you can run AI agents in the new world, where you can just prompt anything that you want, which is what you're seeing in this screen, for example, and get all sorts of insights that typically would take you hours, days, or weeks within 2 to 3 minutes, right? And that is, now you take this, you can pat it every single day across your entire team. Your team becomes an operating machine.
I think it's so great. And I think it kind of fits into this like broader pyramid. You start talking about like the spine, a lot of things that have to get done here as well. We've been talking a little bit about this kind of hokey title here, Maslow's hierarchy of analytics and AI, and the things that actually have to be in place. And so you talked a lot about, I think, like data capture and process enforcement. But I think like even before that, it's talking about like what are we trying to do from like a go-to-market process as well. And so many companies that we talk to actually in the kind of Series A, sometimes even B range, don't have a clear understanding of what even should be happening in the ideal motion. And they're kind of moving too quick to like, how do I just throw AI onto this mess to, make things finally work or be more efficient? You can understand what you're trying to accomplish, make sure it's actually happening, you're capturing the data. Obviously, Attention does an amazing job of that from a like call recording perspective. You can actually make sure you can trust the data to have AI go and take actions off of it. And we think, see, that's where like AccountAim comes in as well, to bring in kind of all of your data sets, get to a customer 360. And then only there you can kind of layer on AI as well. I think
100.
anything else you see on these on like the process side, like things that folks need to think about before maybe even like implementing a tool like Attention that's kind of bringing in, I think it's so interesting that you guys bring in a lot of good data to the CRM, but like, do they need to do some upfront planning around like how to do that well?
Yeah, even before thinking about your conversational data, how do you structure your CRM in a way that it's going to be intelligent, right? So let's say I'll give you a very simple and tactical example, right? Um, Timestamping the progression of your stages in your CRM, right? Um, so, so what does that mean? Let's say you're going from stage 1 to stage 2, timestamping into a specific opportunity that it got marked as stage 2 within in that specific day, right? And then moving to stage 3, it got moved, and you're having a different field that will say what day it moved to stage 3. Why is that important? I think what's going to happen next is that as a RevOps leader, or as a revenue leader overall, you're going to have the ability to measure the progression of your deals amongst different stages and understand in a smarter way what parts of your funnel are blocking the most and where you should be concentrating your efforts, right? And so let's say, typically it's at and people could be very wrong about their assumptions here, but let's say, hey, like most of our deals get stuck from MQL to SQL, and then actually they realize that it's typically at the procurement level or at getting even like a green light by a leader, right? For example. Then at that point, those are two different moments where you need to focus on your go-to-market motion, and that those are two different questions that you need to ask about your systems and your data and your conversations to try to understand what's breaking, right? And what you should be doing better. And so there are a lot of things around that, like how do you structure your CRM correctly before you even start going into AI?
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And so many companies, I think, are not at that stage yet. So if you think about like preparing for AI, I think even just laying out the customer journey and understanding how all that flows is some really good legwork that folks can do. As we think about AI more broadly too, and all the things that an agent can do, I kind of have the perspective that, Clay is an amazing company. I think they actually just raised a 100 million Series C announced today, so it's topical. But my personal take, and I'm actually curious, Anais, if you agree with it, is that like third-party data, scraped data is kind of becoming commoditized. So it's really cool that you can go find pretty much any data point now that's like relevant to your ICP or who you're trying to go after, but that means it's also available to all of your competitors as well. And so how do we get like a leg up on the market? My perspective is that it's really how well you use that first party data. So call transcripts, really important context there. But then what else can you kind of add to that to add more context to the agents that you're employing? So I
Yeah.
wanted to kind of, oh yeah, no, please.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And by the way, I've seen companies operationalize third-party data very differently, right? I'll talk about, let's say, a company like Pigment, right? Incredibly good at that. They built an incredible machine at getting all the right third-party signals, but then also building kind of their own internal models into ranking and weighting different third-party signals. And so getting then, filtering through those signals to get the right messages, let's say in a Slack channel for their VDRs to action, right? I've heard also of other companies like Ramp who do that extremely well too. So yeah, obviously that data is present for everyone. At the end of the day, it's how do you use that better, but then also B, more importantly, how do you now use first party data to your advantage to even go further and beyond everyone else there?
Yeah, and I wanted to do kind of a quick rhetorical thought experiment here, and just around, which data set kind of has the most context. So I think people know from using ChatGPT personally that the more context you provide the prompt, of course, the much better answer you're going to get. If you go and do a basic prompt without any context, you're not going to get super meaningful results. The answer kind of here, just to make the point, is obvious on the screen, but the more data, the better, right? And so to the extent you can bring together CRM, call transcripts, product usage, marketing platform data, understand everything that's going on with an account or a contact to get that right, that perfect message, the better off you'll be. Similarly, we see a huge benefit with our customers around data snapshotting. And so as we think about like actioning data, if you're even just going to go, prompt your go-to-market data to answer a question or figure out which customers are at risk. We have two examples on the screen here of customer health trended over time. And on the left here would be customer health snapshotted quarterly, which some folks do in Salesforce because there's kind of some limitations around snapshotting. On the right would be, what if we snapshot customer health every time it changes, basically in real time? You can see here that on that case, you get a much more interesting portrayal of like that customer's experience with your business. And so maybe they had some, bad implementation experiences here or some really bad product outcomes that really kind of tanked their health for a while. Even though that customer health score came up to this fictional number of 80 in this example, if you're only snapshotting that quarterly in this example, AI might not pick up on the fact that they actually had kind of like a tenuous relationship with you. They might not, flag this to you that they're a customer that needs some attention around renewal. Whereas if you're actually capturing this data all the time, you start to get to much more rich insights that kind of fills in the gap of the knowledge. And so we view this as another example of how you can really start to utilize first-party data much more effectively to get better results with AI.
Totally. We're even internally, right, for within our own teams when it comes to customer health, we're layering obviously, the conversations, but also product analytics in there to kind of make sure that we're not missing everything, right? And so at the same time, you could only have conversations with, let's say, your champion, but then, the exec sponsor might have never logged into your platform. And maybe, they know of another platform where they have a friend or a contact or that they decide to buy and replace you simply because they've never even used your platform, right? And so having that sort of data can also be extremely, extremely useful if you layer it on top of your conversational data.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll also say to folks listening, feel free to ask any questions in real time in the Q&A button down at the bottom. We'll try and flag those as we can. So we just talked a little bit about like the macro of what it takes to do AI well. I think, Anis, you'll have a good perspective on this around like step-by-step enablement. So it's a huge bite to take to do a lot of this at once. Curious if you have a perspective on like managing this change in phases. You talked a little bit about it earlier with like getting the CRM prepared for this to do it well. Is there anything else you see in terms of change management or just like doing this, piece by piece?
Um, I would say on top of that, so yes, there's your CRM data. There's also pretty importantly, I would say, getting your knowledge base updated, right? With what you're getting, the data that you're getting, right? The voice of the customer. Let's say you're having an entire Notion documentation around, what people like and dislike about each competitor, right? Um, what we built here in-house was a pretty simple flow that whenever something new about a competitor gets mentioned that does not exist in our uh, Notion knowledge base, right? It sends us a notification on Slack with that new information, and all we have to do is approve or reject it before it makes the overriding or updating in Notion, right? So these things are also extremely helpful because what's going to happen is if your knowledge base is up to date and well built, then you can start feeding it as context for other things when you're either going to train your reps and coach them, or even when you're going to start building marketing collateral for the rest of your team, right? So you can view that knowledge base similarly to your CRM as something, your CRM will be something for RevOps, whereas your knowledge base will be something for enablement. And the biggest pain with enablement teams is that they are pretty slow at updating the information with the latest info.
Yeah, this is great. And I love that this kind of plays well with the second bullet on the screen here too. It's like, let's just solve specific roadblocks kind of in real time too. And so I think like keeping a knowledge base up to date on terms of like competitor, like battle cards basically is a really good example. Um, Anis, let's talk a little bit about like what I call like the maturity curve or maturity pyramid of like actual things that folks can be doing at kind of like self-diagnosed stages of maturity. And so maybe I'll take like some of the like data readiness perspectives and data things you can do. Maybe you can take some of like the AI use cases, I think many of which are served by Attention. So if I think about like mastering the basics, and you touched on this a little bit in the beginning around the spine. Like for us on the data perspective, you're getting ready for AI is two things. One, I already mentioned on data snapshots. The more historical data you have, the better. So to the extent you can go turn those on, whether it's in Salesforce or a tool like AccountAim that's going to snapshot in more detail than a Salesforce, go do that now. Even if you're not using it actively, you're going to start building up that context and that trend analysis that AI can use. And the other piece would be like a metric source of truth as well. So as people start to experiment with natural language querying for analytics, there's going to be a lot of like what I would call gremlins in the data in terms of like how do you define revenue gross versus net? What's the context? Are we pulling the right things? And so my fear in like an AI world from an analytics and BI perspective is that information like that gets, funneled up to the board without the proper checks. And so I think establishing that source of truth, just from a metrics perspective, is a really good thing to do at the first step.
Totally. What I would say, so looking into the first bullet point that you have there, right? Capture CRM fields, especially things such as, MedPick and Spice and so on. Well, obviously the first thing is to understand the opportunity health that you have, but also at the same time, let's say you have some pain information in your CRM. You're about to reopen that opportunity 6 to 8 months from now, right? at that point, you may want to reach back to your champion and even you might have context on the opportunity, but your reps don't, right? Especially if it's a rep that moved on or from the company or from that opportunity. And at that point, you may want someone new to have the entire context around the pain. So you may want to say, hey, James, I remember that last time you spoke with our company, you dealt with CRM hygiene issues, but it was not the right time, right? Um, would love to reopen this conversation and show you what our best clients are doing. Is Mike also still a good person to include in our conversation, right? And Mike would be within the decision process of your medic fields, and that will actually increase the response rates that you're going to get from the closed loss reactivations. So that's extremely important. And as you're thinking about building a business, I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably thinking about the next years to come. So you want to build things on proper foundations. When it comes to coaching reps as well, right? You need to have the ability to understand where your reps are good and where they're not good. Obviously, there are a lot of soft skills, right? They can be extremely good at building a report, and for all it can be, they might not even follow your framework, but they're crushing it because they're incredibly good at building a report. However, for the entire, I would say kind of like 80% of the reps, who are not as good at building a report or creating, emotional connection, you may still want them to follow a specific coaching framework, right? And at that point, you'll want to score all their conversations using AI. Have they done this? How well have they done it? On a scale from 1 to 5. In the old world, people would, managers would, whenever they have time, review a call, put a comment, and also fill a scorecard. The reality is no one would ever fill these scorecards. People don't have time. Every now and then they would put in comments, but what would be even better from, and this is where we see the best in class companies that are adopting AI today, is that they have every single call getting scored all day, every day. And at that point, they can actually track how better the reps are getting, at, let's say, digging into the impact of the pain, and then also correlate that with their win rates in their CRM so that they can tell their CROs or their CEOs, look, ever since we adopt Spiced as a framework to qualify our deals, but also this specific coaching methodology that we have put in place, our reps are able to close more deals, and that's because they're getting better at all these things that we're coaching them at. That's extremely, extremely powerful at not only justifying your existence as a leader, but also into making sure that your business is winning more deals.
Yeah, that's really compelling. And we chat with a lot of RevOps folks on these, and I think a big pain is like the ROI of RevOps. Like RevOps does so much, but it's kind of like a nebulous, amorphous role. And so I think like you talked about call coaching, which is probably more sales manager relevant in terms of justifying ROI, but I think there's so many probably other examples that folks can immediately think about from like a RevOps perspective of all these initiatives we did. How is it actually correlating with success on calls and with win rates? And so I think that's a really awesome tool. So if we think about level two, then I'll kick us off again just from a data perspective, and I'd love to hear how you think about advancing kind of maturity on these on some of the AI use cases. For us, we think go-to-market data connection becomes huge. Again, get that customer 360-degree view of exactly what's happening, so that AI can have more context. So even your reps, even in a world without AI, they can have more context of like what they need to do. And then we see the best companies that we've worked with develop SLAs for basically every role, CSMs, BDRs, you name it. We have one customer, Mosaic, who got all of their data in one place and basically created an ROE for their BDRs of every day. What is the exact account you should work next based on all the signals it's showing and the data behind it. So if a company was just on this page of the website or just had this behavior or that behavior, has this demographic info, they're going to book in a meeting at this rate. Let's make sure BDRs, without any manual research, are automatically getting those accounts to go work them, stack rank each day, stay BDRs a bunch of time, and increase kind of booked meetings rates. And so I think that all starts by bringing the data together. And it's one of the more powerful things we've seen here, kind of like the level 2 of 3.
Yeah, that's extremely interesting. We haven't even gotten there yet as a business where we can actually correlate these specific third-party insights with success, right? Um, I know that some companies more focused on the top of funnel have been able to do that really well, right? So, hey, for all the companies that visit these pages where they've had this type of job changes, and got a certain amount of funding, let's say in the last X months, are able to correlate things really well directly to a closed won perspective, RAM being one of them. And they were able to really, instead of boiling the ocean in terms of targeted outreach, they would target it way better and they would know exactly what types of clients to go after at each moment in time.
Yeah, and it should be like just make it a no-brainer too, right? Stop any of the debate and just get folks selling instead of digging through the CRM or multiple different data sources. Any other use cases we're talking about that you also see with customers from like a more advanced AI perspective? I know on here we have kind of like deal forecast or churn risk detection. I don't know. We could also just go to level 3 and talk about like the kind of super agent you guys just launched.
Yeah, totally. I think we can go ahead to step 3. Also, please, anyone in the audience, feel free to ask any questions, or participate as well if you'd like to.
So why don't you kick us off then, Anise? I think Attention is super well prepared here with your recent product launch. So maybe tell us like maybe even just like what it is, why it's so helpful, and kind of maybe even where Attention is going to continue to go.
Yeah, totally. I'm sure a lot of people here have heard of MCP, right? And what you can normally do with MCP is have the ability to read into using AI to read into the APIs of different tools and get all sorts of data pretty autonomously. And so I know that a lot of very smart RevOps people have been setting up their own MCP servers and using Claude or Cursor to get the information that they want. Some of the issues specifically with MCP is that they can be very brittle and things can break. And so what we've been able to do over here at Attention, and props to shout out to my co-founder for that, has been to kind of operationalize that within our product, right? So you don't need to set up your MCP server. All you have to do is connect your different tools, prompt whatever you need to have prompt, and then have the ability to query whatever you want. And the AI agent will have the ability to go across all your different tools and autonomously get the information that it needs in order to accomplish a specific objective, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say I want to understand, hey, take over the last 12 months or the last 6 months, our fastest growing high value ACV deals, right? Let's say all of our 6-figure deals that we closed the fastest over the last 6 months, understand specifically where these people came from, and what were the most burning pain points that got them to buy us extremely fast. And what did the best reps do at the company to properly multi-thread that, right? So if you were to do this in the old world, it would take you forever because you need to figure out, which opportunities those are, but then look through the conversations, look into the emails, get an understanding, and still you might miss a lot of things. What Attention Super Agent will do is that autonomously it will look into all these things for you in order to get you the result that you're trying to get to within a few minutes. And so yes, normally if you put in 2 hours of your day or 3 hours, to do that manually, you could get there. But the reality is this becomes incredibly more powerful when everyone at your company has the ability to do that and create those things. And so what we're seeing here is that, for example, BERs, they're able to ask the super agent, hey, look into, all the cold calls or all the deals that we closed lost, where they told us to reach back in 6 months, right? And within 1 or 2 minutes, they get all those deals, and now they have their list for the day that they can go back and prospect to.
That's so awesome, and so much leverage for other supporting teams of them as well. I love that example. Well, I think we're right at time here. We can go a couple minutes over if folks have any questions. Anise, thank you so much. Always great to hear your perspective. This was fun. I think I might see one here. Question from Pete. So, do you have a practical story of how one can go from maturity level 2 to 3, and how, yeah, maybe just like a practical story of kind of advancing up the curve?
Yeah, totally. So actually it happens very quickly. That level 2 to 3 typically is based on the tooling that you're going to use. So if your data is in place and it's, you have the information that you need in your CRM, your calls are properly connected to your CRMs, your emails are getting also marked as an activity in your CRM, then if you roll out, the right tooling, then you could immediately get to that level 3.
It feels like if you have the base peer parts of the pyramid we showed kind of covered, that's like the pre-work you need to do internally. Then there's some like third-party tooling in the market to actually make use of all of that.
That's
This is a
correct.
great question I see here, that I actually get a lot, and Anise, I'm curious your perspective on this one too. Like, what is the minimum amount of data I need to make AI work? Are we talking weeks, months? Is there a different even like unit people should be thinking about from a data perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, so there's two things to think about, right? Like when you think about the data, it's how many even, customer facing reps do you have? Because the more you're gonna have, the more data you're obviously gonna have. And then the second thing is how long, how many, days or weeks of data do you need? I would say that, within your first few weeks, let's say your first month, you start getting to a point where you can have enough data. It also depends on your sales cycles, right? Like if your sales cycle is 30 days, then within your first month or first 6 weeks, you can get really interesting data. But obviously, the longer and the more reps you have, the better.
It's so dependent on use case and like what you do with the AI output as well, right? Like if you're just, I think you can start with a smallish amount of data as long as you maybe, don't over correlate some of the insights or something, right? You take it as like a grain of salt or like one piece of information to triangulate with like other sources as well, right?
Exactly, 100%.
Okay, any final questions here? I know we're a few minutes over. Otherwise, we will let you all get back to your day. Going once. Going twice. Okay, well, thanks, Anise, again. We will shoot you guys the recording here, but this is awesome, Anise.
Thank you. Add me on LinkedIn, by the way. Feel free to connect with me. And it's Bennaceur. I'll gladly accept you.
Likewise. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.